After a couple of days of some big commitments, it's time to get back into Jimmy Stein's countdown, y'all.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. I'll tell you about LinkedIn here in just a little bit. Thanks for making this your first or second or third. I don't really care when it is, as long as you listen every single day. Jimmy, let's get back into your countdown immediatement, as they say in French, I think, if I remember right. And here's what's weird. Today on your countdown, we're going to do two guys, one in each segment, and then we're going to do some miscellaneous stuff. You have Miles McVay at number 55, who wears number 54. Rock Montgomery at number 54, who wears number 55. Are you purposely just trying to screw me up? And by the way, Rock Montgomery has changed his name from McElderry. So now, I'm all confused.
It is. And these are the two guys we're talking about today. It's very difficult to separate them anyway. I guess you could argue they're in a random order, and I probably should have just gone with the jersey number, right?
Would have been easier for everybody.
Really? I couldn't separate them or really Olas, who we talked about last. Really, these three linemen that are right in a row on the countdown. Let's talk about all three of them, even though we've already covered Olas. They're sort of hard to separate. In my mind, look, there are 5 second-team offensive linemen right now, okay, in terms of the projection, what I would project, and I'm sure Luke agrees, the 5 projected second-team offensive linemen right now. Wilkin Formby, Geno Vandermark, and then Rock Montgomery, Miles McVay, and Olas Allen. I have Geno Vandermark much higher on the list because in my mind, he's going to be the 6th offensive lineman, the guy that's going to come in and start maybe for a big chunk of the season if any one of the 5 starters gets hurt. I think Vandermark goes in next. I have Wilkin Formby pretty high because I'm not even convinced he's going to be second team. He may very well beat out Elijah Pritchett. I think it's one of the great battles this fall camp is Formby versus Pritchett. So I've got those two much higher. I think these 3 second-team offensive linemen, Olas, Miles, and Rock, they're second team, but they're back a ways. And by that, I mean it's going to take more than 2 injuries for them to climb in the first team. But we will see them. They're pretty high on the list here in the mid-50s or low 50s, Luke, because as second-team offensive linemen, they're going to play most weeks. Most weeks they'll come in at the end of games and get needed experience because I think Olas, Miles, and Rock are all potential future starters. They're just probably all of them are probably a year away right now, still working on their bodies, still working on becoming SEC linemen. But they're second-team players, so they're pretty high. But they're not second-team players as good as Formby and Vandermark, so they're behind those guys. As to Miles and Rock specifically,
you're on McVay first.
Oh, you want to do McVay first? Yeah.
Well, because isn't he 55?
He is 55. Let's do Miles McVay first. Even though he wears 54, we're doing 55.
I know, but it's a countdown, not a count up.
Great point. Great point. At the countdown, we got to start with Miles. And here's the thing that stands out to me about Miles McVay. I think, Luke, he is a great poster child for the transition from Saban to DeBoer because Saban and Coach Wolford wanted really big, really heavy offensive linemen because they wanted to run the ball. And Miles McVay was tracking under those guys to be a thing, maybe even this year. But the new staff gets here, and DeBoer and Coach Kapelovic, but they call him Coach Cap, they want pass blockers. They want lighter on their feet, good athletes. So McVay has sort of like switched spots with Wilkin Formby. Formby kind of needed to gain weight under the Saban people. He's perfect weight for the DeBoer people. So Formby is sort of leapfrogged Miles McVay as a guy who could be a thing this year, while Miles is now in the he's going to have to lose some weight to play category. The good news is he is losing weight. The reports are pretty good there. It's just going to take a while to sort of prove to the new staff that he can pass block at this level. We knew he would be a good run blocker, and moving large humans off the line of scrimmage is sort of Miles's thing. Hey, look, he's got a bright future. He's a great kid. He really likes Alabama. I hope it works out for him. I would still today say Miles McVay is a future starter at Alabama. It's just going to take probably at least one more year. But this year he will gain some great experience playing in games, probably being a number 2 tackle of sorts. I project he'll be the number 2 right tackle. Pritchett or Formby will win that job. Whoever loses the job becomes the number 2 left tackle. And Miles McVay would be the number 2 right tackle. And so I see him playing at the end of game situations and having a pretty bright future at Alabama. But there's no doubt, I'm not sure the change in staff has helped him in terms of play immediately. Probably going to help him in the long term because I'm a guy that's sort of more in line with what the new staff is doing. I'm not as crazy about 350-pound linemen. I don't even think the NFL wants you that size. Notice that J.C. Latham, a top 10 pick in the draft, every draft interview he talked about, he's like, well, I got to lose some weight. Well, he was putting on weight because Saban and Wolford wanted him bigger. You got to lose some weight to play at that next level. So I think this is actually going to be good for Miles McVay in the long run, but probably set him back a year, to be honest, in terms of getting on the field and contending for a starting spot. Had Saban and Wolford stayed, Luke, I think I'd be saying, boy, big-time competition at right tackle between Pritchett and McVay to see who's going to start opposite Proctor. But, again, with the new staff now, I think that competition's Pritchett versus Formby.
Makes it sound like Miles McVay could be a transfer candidate. Now, I'm not trying to put words or actions in anybody's mouth or wherever you put actions, but I'm just saying it sounds like if that's the way it is, it sounds like he could be a transfer portal, not victim, right. Candidate, I guess is a better word.
Yeah, I would urge him to say, if I'm talking to him and his agent, what I would say, because gosh knows they want to know what I think. I would say, hey, see where you are at the end of the season, because it could be when you're going into SEC championship week, you feel like I'm going to be a starter next spring. I will be with the ones next spring. That's very possible with him. I'm not ruling that out at all. I just think he's not going to be a one this fall, and he may have been under the old staff. But I think after this season, let's see where he is. Maybe, hopefully, and for his sake, none of the young guys like Casey Poe have jumped him. I would think, by the way, if we're talking about future transfer portal type stuff with a guy like Miles McVay, I would say it's not so much who's ahead of him, it's who's behind him. And if he's about to be leapfrogged by Casey Poe, for instance, or Naquel Bertrand, then I could see that a portal thing happening. But if it's just waiting his turn because there's dudes ahead of him that are older, I think patience is the right thing to do in most of those cases. But when you get leapfrogged by a freshman, well, now it might take you a while to get in the lineup, right? So I always look, hey, what did Satchel Paige say years ago? Famous baseball player back in the old days said, don't look behind you. Somebody might be gaining on you. That's sort of the portal to me.
That doesn't sound like something he said, though.
I think he said something like that. He said a lot of.
I'm going to look that up.
Crazy thing.
Wouldn't be.
Never look behind you. Something might be gaining on you.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, he probably did say something like that. I suspect he's either worded it better or through history it has gotten better.
Hey, everybody words it better. Oh, and I got a fairly funny locked on story when you're back after telling us about LinkedIn jobs.
Oh, you're a great American. You're dang right. I'm going to tell you about LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role for you. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has tools to help you find the right professionals faster and for free. And they do it for your team to make your whole organization better. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. Come on. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're not looking in the right place, yo. So LinkedIn, look, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate from them. That's within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Look, all you got to do is go post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, They're going to be there, but that's okay. Regale us with your funny locked on story, Jimmy.
Well, it's not that funny. I probably built it up too much. So, as we sometimes talk about on the show, every now and then, with our great fans here, we get recognized here and there, and I'm still not used to it. It still kind of blows me away a little bit. But so today, the wife and I were out running errands. We get back to the condo, and as we're parking at the condo unit here in Tuscaloosa, as we're parking, this older gentleman is waiting. He's clearly stopped his car and he's waiting for me to get out of the car. He's waiting, and he's an older guy, and I'm like, what does this guy want? He's clearly waiting. And as soon as we get parked, I open the door and hold out my hand, and I say, "What can I do for you?" And I thought he was going to say, "Oh, I saw you, and I'm a big fan of the show." But instead, he said, "I just moved into the condo and wanted to meet my neighbors." And I'm like, I told my wife, I think my ego's out of control. I thought he was going to tell me that he wanted to meet me because he was a fan of the show. Instead, it's he's like, "No, I just wanted to meet you because I didn't, And thankfully, I didn't say that. Thankfully, I didn't say, "Oh, thanks for listening to the show." And he's like, "What show?" Which is like what our family asks us all the time. What show?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's
what our family says.
That is so very true. By the way, the Satchel Paige quote that you didn't butcher as badly as I thought is "Don't look back. Something might be gaining on you."
There you go.
All right.
Pass that along to Miles McVay.
How about this one? This one's pretty good. It's almost Yogi Berra-ish. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you are? It's not bad.
That's pretty good.
So I guess the question for Rock Montgomery is, how much would he be playing if he didn't know he wasn't playing right now?
Rock, I've got ahead of Miles McVay in the countdown for this reason. Rock appears to be, until Gino Vandermark got here, Rock appeared to be set to potentially be the first interior player off the bench. So if we needed a second center, it'd be Rock. If you need a backup guard, it would be Rock. So that's why I have him one spot ahead of Miles McVay and 2 spots ahead of Olas Allen. And I think Rock Montgomery might be a little bit ahead of those guys slightly. Now, Rock, much like Miles McVay, is in the weight loss program and is doing fantastic. One more reason to rank him a little higher. Rock is making some serious strides in getting down to a great playing weight. As a matter of fact, I heard a rumor he's at 305, which is hard to believe because I think he showed up around 340. I know we've heard stories about Jaheim Otis losing, 100 pounds, but and that's so freakish. We forget that even losing 30 or 40 pounds over a year or 18 months is very difficult to do. But Rock has lost the weight. I think he's got a bright future. Let's remember about this guy, even though he's not super hyped on the team, Luke, this kid was committed to Georgia. And, I think we all hold Georgia in high esteem in terms of their roster, and a take for Georgia is a big deal, just like being a take for Alabama is a big deal. But Rock Montgomery, I'll always say this about recruiting rankings, and I'm a fan of recruiting rankings. I know Luke is, and I think everybody does a good job with it, and On3 does a great job with recruiting rankings. But one thing about recruiting rankings that cracks me up a little bit, I'm not sure where Rock was ranked off the top of my head. I don't remember. I just know it wasn't super high. He was ranked, as a good prospect, but not great. If you can commit to Alabama or Georgia, shouldn't you be pretty dang high? You know what I'm saying? Isn't that what this is sort of all about? Is who wants you? Where can you go? Who are you good enough to play for? And if you're good enough to play for Alabama and Georgia, they both think so. That's a pretty big deal. So let's remember that about Rock Montgomery, even though he didn't show up with a 5th star, even though he didn't show up with I don't even think he was national top 100.
No, Jimmy, he was a 3-star unranked nationally, number 47 in his position.
Is that the industry rating?
That is I just pulled up, I just typed it in, and that was the 24/7 ranking. So let me pull up I'll pull up the Bama Online one while
pull up the On3 industry ranking, because that's across all 4 services. And I know at On3 we promote the On3 industry ranking as a great look at as a recruiting snapshot, even though we think On3 has the most accurate rankings. But the On3 industry.
Yeah, I'm pulling that up as we speak.
Well, Rock's got a little positional versatility, meaning he can play center, he can play guard. That's very helpful when you're trying to get on the field, when you can play more than one spot. Throwing in the fact that he's a redshirt freshman and can already play 2 spots, that's super helpful. I'll say about Rock, same thing I said about Miles, same thing I said about Olas. He's a 2. I'm not putting him as high as Geno Vandermark and Woken Formby. They're going to be a little higher on the countdown on the roster ranking. But I do think Rock has a good chance of being a future starter at Alabama. He's just going to have to be a little patient as he waits for the guards, Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts, to cycle out of the program.
He was only in the top 250 by 1, and that was Rivals. He was a 4-star, according to I'm having to go all the way back up and check. He's a consensus 3-star. He was a 4-star on 3. But still not in the top.
There you go. The fact he's a 4-star by On3. Like I was saying, On3 is the most accurate and the most accurate rankers. And to me, I just start with the fact, if you can go to Alabama and Georgia, you should be ranked pretty high, because not everybody is a take at Alabama and Georgia.
No, that's right. Or Ohio State. And I don't know that he could have gone to Ohio State, but I think that
I agree.
I believe anybody would have taken him in the SEC. Maybe
hard to believe you're a yes at Alabama and Georgia, and the South Carolina, Kentucky, Mississippi States and Ole Misses say, not so sure. But hey, that can happen, by the way. I mean, I think it'd be fascinating. I think I would like to see this, and I know everyone listening would like to see this. I think it'd be fun to watch a staff debate whether a player is a take or not, as they watch tape of him, hear a pitch, and then hear a college staff debate on where a kid should rank on their board or whether he's a take or not. Y'all would be surprised at how there is almost always a staff divide, unless you're talking about just slam dunk 5 stars and national top 100 guys that your great niece could pick out of a lineup and say, "Oh, hey, Grandpa, this guy's a great football player." Unless you're talking about that, there's a staff divide usually at a place like an Alabama. Now, I'm sure that's not the case at, a group of 5 school where a lot more players are takes than they are at the power 4 level.
All right, Jimmy, I'm going to need to tell everybody about FanDuel. We love FanDuel over here at Locked On Bama. I mean, it's awesome. And what a time. What a time to be alive. What a time to go get on FanDuel. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and much, much more. You can bet on all of it at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on anything and everything, from Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park, whatever. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel is, of course, as you know, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, final segment here, Jimmy, and we're going this afternoon, all the kickoff time windows should be released. And I'm not a fan. I want to tell you something. Look,
I'm surprised that you're not.
Let me tell you why. Normally I am. I'm a fan of finding out the schedule. I'm not a fan of the times, and let me tell you. So during the season, I have my routines, and I'm a creature of habit. So, all right, let's start on Friday. Friday, I've got usually some kind of high school game, something to do. I mean, either I'm calling a game, I'm doing a school board show, I'm going to a game, or I'm just going to stay home and watch a bunch of them, right? Saturday is all about college football. Sunday is doing this podcast on Sunday morning, then all about NFL, right? Monday is sort of like digest everything, watch Monday Night Football, and also see, I think Monday is Monday when they do the Players of the Week? I think Monday is when they do the Players of the Week for the SEC, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Monday they do the Players of the Week for the SEC. I love seeing that. Tuesday is when we find out where the games are like 2 weeks in advance. And I always love to guess who's going to be the CBS game, who's going to be the ESPN game. And like for me, it makes Tuesday a thing. Like Tuesday kind of sucks during the football season. I mean, it sucks because it's really the only time that there's very little football, and it feels like there should be. Wednesday, you're sort of like gearing up for the next weekend already. Like Tuesday, you're sort of getting over last week, and Wednesday, you're moving on. But I love having that Monday, find out SEC players of the week, and Tuesday, you find out when the new games are. So these windows, I mean, I've always wondered why basketball does this. Like, why on earth do we need to, when you have a good game, like if you don't know South Carolina and LSU are going to be good or bad, and let's say you think they're both going to be awesome and they both stink, and CBS has to put that game on because they chose it back in June for a February game, I think that's stupid.
I think when you assume, and I'm just assuming here, I'm no TV accountant guy that determines impacts and eyeballs and when a game should be on, but I'm just going off the premise that if the game of the week, and I'm talking about for ESPN, because all the Alabama home games and road games in the SEC will be broadcast by ESPN or ABC. I'm assuming that if it's the game of the day, they want it to kick off at 6 or 6:30 or 7 o'clock. I assume they want the game of the day, early prime time TV, because that's when they put on the Super Bowl, right? I mean, the Super Bowl comes off 5:30. So I'm assuming that. Well, Luke, what if we find out tomorrow that the Alabama-Missouri game is set for 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock? And then we get to the Missouri game and both teams are undefeated and in the top 8. But ESPN's already locked it in to an 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock kickoff. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm with Luke a little bit, in the sense that I can see that, isn't it a little early to decide what the game of the day should be? It does help your
travel. If you're like me, and you look, I do pick a game every year, and this year we're going to Wisconsin. Me and some buddies, we do this about every year. Went to Kentucky last year, been to Penn State, Tennessee, Texas A&M, yada, 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 to Texas. So LSU, Georgia, got it. Quit saying them, Luke. So every now and again, I got to like say something to bully myself. But it will help a little bit if you are thinking, okay, I want to plan a way to go to the Missouri game, or let me pick a road game. I want to go to the LSU game, but I don't know if it's going to be at 11 in the morning. I don't know. It's going to be tough for me to get there. It's 11 in the morning, but if it's not, you can make some plans. I still don't like it. I still would much rather, I think it's cooler to put people have them be anxious waiting for this in anticipation of a kickoff time. And I think it's also a prize. I think there was every time Alabama got the CBS game, and I knew that was the best game. Like, that's always the best game. I was always like, yeah. I mean, because it felt like Alabama won that week. Now, it's not a win, doesn't count for anything. But all of a sudden, you're like, hey, we're the top dog, right?
I give CBS a ton of credit for CBS helped build the SEC into what it is today because of there was a big game feel to the 2:30 CBS kicker. When you're playing on CBS at 2:30, that was the game of the day. And a lot of that is because of CBS hyping it and the production values of the game. It was no different than watching an NFL game in terms of the camera work and the production values of the game. It was just fantastic. And I think we're going to lose some of that with ESPN, even when you're the primetime game with Fowler and Herbstreit. Because now that's been replaced by what used to be 2:30 with Gary and Brad, now is 6 or 7 o'clock with Fowler and Herbstreit. That's the game of the day. And hey, I'm a huge Kirk Herbstreit fan. I'm a massive Kirk Herbstreit fan. I love Kirk, and I think it's cool when Kirk and Chris do our games. And I don't know that it feels like those afternoon CBS games did. So we'll see.
And then, I didn't like. I'm like everybody else. I didn't like being in the swelter and heat or anything, but it was worth it. I mean, because the CBS, I'm gonna miss the CBS music. It's like when NBA left NBC. I mean, John Tesh had that thing rolling, man, with that soundtrack. And now, I mean, I don't know. I just
the SEC on ESPN logo was also bland and boring. Did you see it? Looked like it was slopped together by somebody way down the totem pole.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to screw it up because SEC has gotten to a point where it's hard to screw it up. It's like the NFL. Even when they screw up, it turns out to be awesome. The Eagles and the Green Bay Packers, I don't know, this may be a hoax or something online, but I saw this. The Packers and the Eagles are playing in Brazil this year.
True.
And neither one of them can wear green because of some gang thing going on.
Now, is that true? I read it, but my first thought was, wow. And then my second thought was, this is just more internet bull. It
could be. I choose to believe it, Jimmy. I choose to believe it.
It's fun to believe, but I bet it's bull.
It's got to be a hoax because, I mean, you would think somebody would have done some research into that. And plus, I mean, is some gang going to be down there? Like,
if you can't wear a certain team color because, if you can't wear a certain team color because you're afraid for the safety of the players on the field, then maybe you shouldn't be playing there at all.
Exactly. And if y'all harm one hair on Devontae Smith's head, I swear to God, the wrath of Locked On Bama will fall upon Brazil.
Yes.
Probably sometime around Carnival because we love to have fun too.
We'll go to Carnival after we stomp on the Devontae Stompers.
Did I ever tell you?
Yeah, that'll be a war.
Before we get there, did I ever tell you my Carnival story? My parents going to Carnival in Rio?
You did not. And is this a story that can be told on our G-rated
It
channel?
can, and sort of very quickly. So my parents and a bunch of their friends decided they're going to go to Carnival one year. Now, I was really young. I didn't know.
Carnival, I believe, as they say.
I know. I know.
Carnival.
When I say that, I sound so pompous. I'm not doing it.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
So I'm going Carnival, like, it's something out in the Roses parking lot that we get.
Well, I'm the guy that assume everybody that wants to talk to me is a fan of the show.
So my parents are going, and they decide they're going to take this guy who's also a bartender at the local country club and a bartender at a couple other places. And his name, I'm going to give him a fake name for no reason, just say Ronald. His name was Ronald. Okay, he had never been out of Tallapoosa County, never been on a plane.
He went to Carnival.
And he just loved, he was friends with all these guys, super guy. And, but they all knew him. He was like, like Woody Harrelson, but different. And so anyway, they said, we're going to take him down there and let him, they had a plane chartered or something. They're going to let him serve drinks and sort of serve drinks at different spots while they're there, like, help everybody get gathered up, whatever. So they said, we need to get you a passport. And he's like, okay, no problem. So he gives him his birth certificate because he doesn't have a passport. On his birth certificate, they misgendered him. It marked female. He was a male, 100%. This is pre everything going on now. This is in the 80s. And they just screwed up and put female instead of male. They just screwed up. And if my dad's friends and my dad didn't have like connections with some high folks at the time, I don't think he would have been able to leave the country, or at least not in the time for them to go. But at the time, they knew some people that were able to help them get through the system. But I'd never heard that before, that like his birth certificate, it was pre like, we're going non-binary with our baby or whatever. It was like, no, he's obviously a male. And they just, stamped F or whatever. I mean, and so anyway, they got him on there because, Dad was like, I guess we'll just take him to the airport and let him pull his pants down. What are we going to do?
And you said this was going to be a G-rated story.
Pretty close. Close enough.
It was close.
Anyway, it was rated G for good old God. What's wrong with the first 50 people in LA City? All right. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's Locked On Bama. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.